Revelation 13 is probably the most famous. Revelation 13 has some of its most memorable passages. The 666, the beast, the mark of the beast, all of that is happening in the book, thank you, Thomas, in the book of Revelation, in chapter 13. In many ways, it's actually another depiction of chapter 12. Chapter 12 of Revelation was the heavenly battle that gave us the big enemy, the dragon, which was Satan, that ancient serpent. And in 13, obviously 12, Satan is defeated. Chapter 12's heavenly battle is shown in its earthly counterpart in chapter 13. Satan being cast down, there are sort of consequences for that as Satan lands on the earth. Basically, at its heart, chapter 13 is about authority and loyalty. Yeah, the chapter is really very much about authority. It's very much about who has authority in this world, who should the church be loyal to. And so that's what we're going to look at as we go into the text tonight. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on its horns there were 10 diadems, and on its heads were blasphemous names. Yes. What does that remind us of, Cindy? Do you remember? Have you been doing the Revelation study with us enough to see what this beast that has 10 horns, 7 heads, and horns with crowns on it? Does that sound like anything? Sounds a lot like the dragon from the previous chapter. But it also is reminiscent of the Lamb. There's 3 main bad guys in chapters 13 and 14, 12 and 13. The dragon, that is Satan, and then the sea beast and the land beast. Basically, what we see in chapter 13, the beast is a counterfeit of the Lamb. That's what we're basically seeing in this. That the sea beast, or the beast in general, the dragon in general, the borrowed authority that the beast has from Satan, all of that is caricature of the Lamb. And so this is the blasphemous names, probably an allusion. Remember that at the heart of all of this, we're critiquing Roman Empire, Roman power, probably critiquing the titles the Roman emperors gave of themselves, right? The Caesar, the Father, the Lord, all of those things that would be blasphemous to attribute to anyone but God. That's probably what's going on here. So in your mind, as you're going through this, think of the beast as counterfeit. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear's. Its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And the dragon gave it his power and his throne and great authority. So these 4 beasts that Daniel saw in Daniel, they are now one beast that have been this really terrifying beast here. Not our Daniel, the book Daniel. I don't know that Daniel saw 4 beasts or not. Maybe Daniel did. He just toured the American Southwest. They're beasts. Anyway, we see ultimately the dragon is giving the beast its power and authority. And of course, the dragon is Satan. So we know here that this beast, this counterfeit lamb, this Leviathan, the sea beast, the chaos monster, is getting its authority directly from Satan. One of its heads seemed to have received a death blow, but its mortal wound had been healed. In amazement, the whole earth followed the beast. This is obviously, we don't fully know what this is, but the mortal wound that had been healed, probably reminiscent of the slaughtered lamb that reigns. I'm assuming that's part of our parallel that we have going on here between the two. They worship the dragon, for he had given the authority to the beast. They worship the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?" This is not a statement of, who was there to open the seal? It's not like that. It's not asking a serious question. This is a question. This is a statement of worship. This is a question of worship. This is parallel to Micah chapter 7. Who is like the Lord God? And it's sort of the people are misled that there's, who is possibly like this? And that's what is at the heart of their worship, that they see this great authority that the beast has. The beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words and was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. Again, our 42 months are 3.5 years, middle of time. It's not the end of the story is the point of that, right? We're in the middle of the story. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. So blaspheming those who dwell in heaven, angels? How do you blaspheme an angel? Probably not the angels. Probably those that dwell in heaven that we've already seen who dwelled in heaven, the saints, the martyrs. So, so the beast blaspheming those who dwell in heaven, blaspheming the sacrifice that these martyrs have done, that the book of Revelation attributes to them as enduring and conquering by giving up their life. The Roman emperor, the beast, sees them as weak, sees them as defeated. So what we're about to see through all of this is this reversal. What Rome or what the beast is valuing is not the way the world works, right? Power and violence and the sword. No, that blasphemes the martyr. The martyrs themselves, the ones who endured, the ones who didn't respond with violence, the ones who testified with their mouth and their lives, they're the ones who actually overcome and are celebrated in this story. And so that's I think blaspheming the ones who dwell in heaven. I think it's the martyrs there. Also, it was allowed to make war on the saints and conquer them. It was given authority over every tribe and people and language and nation, and all the inhabitants of the earth will worship it. Everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the, written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb that was slaughtered. By the way, there's some translation issues here. The from the foundation of the world, not sure if that goes with when their name was written or the lamb who was slaughtered from the foundation of the world. I mean, it could go either way in the it doesn't change the meaning much, but I think it's interesting that we have that. And then we have this, let everyone who has an ear to hear listen. Let anyone who has an ear listen. This is kind of like, all right, I've got something important to say. When I was looking at this today, I immediately went to your father. Because the let anyone who has an ear listen in the Charlie Sanders translation would have been, now look. When Mr. Charlie said, now look, you needed to pause, and because what was about to happen was he was about to say something you absolutely needed to listen to. So now listen here also was an introduction of his. Now you listen here. Now look, he did that. So now look, if you are to be taken captive, into captivity you go. If you kill with the sword you must be killed. Here is a call for endurance for the faith of the saints. So violence is coming on the people of God from the beast in this chapter. And the response that they need, the encouragement they need, the now look moment is, if you're going into captivity, you're going into captivity. You don't pick up a sword and respond. You don't answer violence with violence. I mean, this is a call to, again, endurance. And that is how you conquer in the book of Revelation. By testifying, even with, now it's not hiding, it's not withdrawing. It is to testify with life and words up to the point of it taking your life. But you don't get to respond with violence in the book of Revelation. It is a call to endurance by the prevailing interpretations of the book of Revelation teach the book as though it is traditional apocalyptic, encouraging violence.
Right, encouraging war and violence.
Mm-hmm. And instead, John takes traditional apocalyptic and subverts it to actually have the frankly opposite message. This is envisioning an event in time where Christian faith is going to be sort of what Nero did on a small scale, John sees happening worldwide. Mm-hmm. The human impulse is to respond to violence with violence. And that is what Jesus is speaking into in Sermon on the Mount, which is why it's so uncomfortable for so many people, right? I mean, turn the other cheek makes no sense. And then Jesus actually does turn the other cheek. And so, frankly, I am committed to nonviolence, not because I want to be, because I don't. I'm committed to nonviolence because it's what Jesus did and it's what Jesus said to do. If you could give me a way around what Jesus did and what Jesus said to do, I'm happy to find it. But I haven't found a good biblical way to get around that. And the fact of the matter is, Revelation backs that message up. That's when I said that when you put this in context, when you read the book of Revelation well, it becomes a gospel book. It becomes a New Testament book that echoes that message of Christ. But it's using so many elements that we are just so unfamiliar with. We miss that message and we read it overly frankly, anachronistically and a-genrally. I don't even know if that's a word, but they're reading it completely without regard to genre. And the fact is, it's three genres that are coming together. And then when you add to the fact that it's not only three genres coming together, but John is actually playing with those genres, that blows my mind. I mean, there's no way we're going to read that right. I mean, it's a double black diamond book. I mean, it is just a double black diamond book. It's a tough one. So what does this beast do? I saw another beast. Well, excuse me. So we had the Leviathan, it's a sea beast in the first one. Then I saw another beast that rose out of the earth. It had two horns like a lamb. Interesting. It was like a lamb. Huh. And it spoke like a dragon. In case you were wondering where the land beast's authority comes from. So the sea beast's authority was the dragon, and the land beast's authority obviously is the dragon as well. This is the land beast, by the way, is the Hebrew term behemoth. The behemoth is to the Hebrew word is behemoth. No, when it doesn't use it. It's just another beast. It's just another beast that rose out of the sea. What I'm trying to say is, in Hebrew, there were two manifestations of chaos, one from the ocean, one from the land. The sea one was the Leviathan, right? The land one was the behemoth. And so this is the behemoth. It's not, that word is not used, but it is. That's what it is. It is, so I mean, what the Leviathan is to the sea, the behemoth it is the land version of chaos. So usually it's always helpful in my mind to think of wilderness. I mean, that's the best way to go with that. I mean, desert. I mean, when I say wilderness, I mean desert. I mean biblical wilderness, right? I mean desert. Now, what's fascinating is both of those places, both the sea and the desert, are both places that are brimming with creative potential. It is both the sea that God creates in Genesis 1. It is the desert out of which the people come to create a whole new nation. So, they are personifications of chaos in and of themselves, but also there is this sort of remembrance of what God can do, I think. Remembrance of what God can do with this, even though they are getting their authority from Hasatan, from Satan, I should say, at this point. So, more than Hasatan. It exercises all authority of the first beast on its behalf, and it makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast whose mortal wound had been healed. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in the sight of all, very much like the false prophets of Baal in the book of 1 Kings were trying to do, but never really succeeded. And by the signs that it is allowed to perform on behalf of the beast, it deceives the inhabitants of the earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that had been wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast could even speak and cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. Some people have speculated about this, but I've never seen any good. I mean, I'm not willing to kind of go forward with this, but there is some evidence that some of the religious sectarian groups around the Mediterranean did, I don't want to say magic tricks, but performed illusions to give a certain air of authority. There's a great, it's actually in Corinth, in the temple, where in the temple you can actually see in the ruins they had arranged it so when someone poured water in one side, there would be a chamber where someone was in the middle, and they poured wine out the other side to give oh my gosh, it's a miracle, right? And so there are some stories about creating idols that could move and talk, probably along that same line, got no strings. I don't know exactly what they were doing, but I wonder if this is what he's alluding to, or if this is just a story, right? It doesn't have to be referencing anything in particular. It can be just calling that into mind, but it's possible that this idol that could speak might be reminiscent of those priests who make those fancified kind of idols up. Also, it causes all, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead. Just remember what I said. This was the pale imitation of the lamb where all the faithful ones are marked and sealed by God. They have the mark of God on them. They have a stone with their own name. I mean, the mark of God comes back in 5 and 6 and 7. And here, this is the, again, pale imitation, right? Trying to be God and just not doing it. So who is the beast, right? Who is the land beast that we need to worry about? Well, so that no one can buy or sell things who doesn't have the mark, that is the name of the beast, or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. I do love that part. This is a tough one. So you're going to have to pay attention to this. This calls for wisdom. Let anyone with understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it's the number of a person. Its number is 666, or 666, which doesn't sound, I mean, 666 is not scary. 666, that's scary. I don't know why, but it just is. So what is happening here? Well, this clearly is an example of Gematria. Gematria was a numerical riddle that existed, and you could code a name or you could code a word. So imagine if letters had numerical values. Remember that ancient alphabets didn't have numbers per se. We use Arabic numbers for ours. Roman numerals use letters, right? You might have learned Roman numerals, right? They use letters. Imagine coding your alphabet that way, right? So A equals 1, B equals 2. Then you can just add up the numbers of your name, and your name has a numerical value. Now, going that way is easy, right? Finding out the number of your name is easy. There's a math involved, but it's other than that, you just calculate the letters, add them all up, boom, there you go. Going the other way, that's a little trickier, especially the bigger the number it gets, right? How many possible ways are there to add up to a particular number? That's, maybe A equals 1, and the number of the beast is 666, and the beast name is for a long, right? I mean, you can get to 666 a lot of ways. That's what I'm saying. So I'm just saying it's tough to go that direction. That's what I'm saying. There is a name that is very prominent for us to see here, and that is Caesar Nero. If you transliterate the Greek for Caesar Nero into Hebrew, it looks like this: Caesar Neron. His name often had a final N to it, Neron. I have there the Hebrew values of those Hebrew letters. Kophs are 100, Sameks are 60, Rashas are 200, a Nun is 50, another Rash is 200, a Vav is 6, a final Nun. This is the same letter as this, by the way. This is the final form of that. It's kind of like you capitalize the first letters. Some languages have final forms. That's the final form of the Nun. When you add up Caesar Neron, you get 666. But I hear you say, who calls him Neron? I've never heard anyone call him Neron. He was called Neron in some places, but it's not his most common name. His most common name is Nero, right? So you would want to leave off that final Nun, right? Well, how much did I say that a Nun is worth? 50. So 666 minus 50 is 616, exactly. If you look at your New Testament, you will likely see a footnote that says the earlier and most reliable manuscripts have 616. That's right. And so the fact that you can account for the variant manuscripts with the name Nero, I think John is telling us that this calls for wisdom. The number of the beast is one like Nero. Okay, Nero had a kind of mythological kind of, I mean, in an infamous kind of way, existence. He was the one that had the first real local persecution of Christians, right? Blame them for the fire, dip them in pitch and light them on fire to light his gardens, put them to the lions. I mean, his reputation among the church was, infamous. And and of course, there were beliefs that, Nero didn't die, Nero's coming back, Domitian is the incarnation of Nero. But the truth of the matter is, in the church, this would very much, the land beast is Nero, would be like saying the land beast is another Hitler. I mean, a Nero was like, he had that kind of personification, right? This sort of the personification of evil and the go-to that you needed to. I mean, as bad as Stalin was, and arguably Stalin, you know, on the sheer numbers, right? Stalin beats Hitler, which is terrible to say, but Stalin just doesn't have that ethos that is out there for people in the. Yeah, that's probably right. In Eastern Europe, you might have Stalin beating Hitler as far as when you needed the personification of evil, but for some reason, just in the mind of people, Nero would have been for the church what that character of Hitler would have been for. I see her. What that character of Hitler is in dialogue today, as long as you stay off the internet, where apparently everybody's Hitler. Doesn't take long. What's the rule? There's an internet rule. What's the internet rule that the argument's over once someone compares someone to Hitler? I can't remember that internet rule. Look it up real quick. It's an actual. I mean, it's an actual thing that in the comments. How many comments do you get before someone compares someone to Hitler? Anyway, the number of the beast is one like Hitler. Like Nero. Now I got Hitler in the mind. Is one like Nero. So, you know, Gematria is not uncommon. It's particularly
Godwin's law.
Godwin's law. That's what it is. That's what it is. That the longer a comment thread goes on the internet, the probability increases that someone will be compared to the Nazis or Hitler. Godwin's law. Thank you. I knew I wasn't crazy on that.
I'm surprised there's an actual
there is a Wikipedia for Godwin's law. See the things you learn in Wednesday night Bible study, things you just never thought you would have learned at Wednesday night Bible study. Anyway, I've heard so many of the beasts, it's crazy, right? I mean, we grew up in a time of Ronald Wilson Reagan, 666, you know? I mean, how many times we've heard all of this? Gorbachev with his birthmark on his head. I mean, how many things we grew up with the beasts over time. And the truth is, you know, John has nothing, this is not history in advance. This is encouragement, warning of what is coming. I mean, I think John absolutely envisioned a large-scale, universal persecution of Christians that was going to require Christians to continue to testify, but never take up arms and be violent. But now we see, on the heels of, look how successful the beast is, we come to chapter 14. This is fascinating. I looked, and there was the lamb, not like the lamb, the actual lamb, you know, the one who was victorious early on, standing on Mount Zion, and with him were 144,000 who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. So now we have the real thing. No longer the imitation. We have the real full church sitting here with Christ, and them marked with God. And I heard a voice from heaven like the sound of many waters, like the sound of loud thunder. The voice I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps, which it's, how do you make a thunder sound on a harp? I don't, that's got to be a really loud harp.
I guess.
I got smashing the harp. And they sing a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and before the elders. No one could learn that song except the 144,000 that have been redeemed from the earth. So the church. Am I too dark? Sorry about that. I tried to turn the spot on me that we had. Yeah. Turn the backlight off, Thomas. See if that helps. I said I was backlit. Turn that light on. Down at the bottom, on the screen, go to the settings, the three little circles that interlock. Okay, go back to normal, see if that helps. Okay. So the church sings this new song that is a song of victory. It's these who have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins. These follow the Lamb wherever he goes. They've been redeemed from humankind as the first fruits for God and the Lamb, and in their mouth no lie was found. They are blameless. What's the virgin connection here? We're about to see that this is not a statement of sexual condition. This is a statement of purity of worship, because the fornication that we get later on is a perversion of worship. Remember in the Old Testament how often idolatry and adultery are the same thing, and they work as metaphor. This is the same thing that's going on here. So these are those who have not participated in adultery. They've not participated in idolatry. in this. So that is what I think is going on in this story. Molly found a squeaky toy. This is exciting. Then I saw another angel flying in mid-heaven with an eternal gospel. What's gospel mean? Good news. So this is great. The angel's got good news to proclaim to those who live on the earth, to every nation, tribe, and language of people. He said in a loud voice, "Fear God and give him glory, for the hour of his judgment has come." Say, that is good news. Worship him who made heaven and earth and sea and springs of water. So the beast has, with his voice, gotten all the people on the earth who haven't understood who God was, they are the ones who worship the beast. Now God says to every tribe, to the whole earth, God says, worship, fear God, give him glory. So this is a worship statement. This is not, be afraid. This is a worship statement. For the hour of judgment has come. Basically, we have had a harvest here. The book of Revelation is a harvest. And the first fruits of the harvest are those who have already endured and overcome and conquered. And now, God, who made the sea and the earth, where these two beasts are coming from, so the one who actually created, he's the one that we should worship. Then another angel second followed, saying, fallen is Babylon the Great. She's made all nations drink the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So this is, I think, getting back to that statement again. These are people who, the nations who were misled by the beast. Now we're seeing that fallen is Babylon the Great. She made all the nations drink the wine, but God is talking to all the nations now and telling them to, this is the truth. This is good. Then another angel, a third, followed them, crying with a loud voice, "Those who worship the beast and its image receive a mark on their foreheads and on their hands. They will also drink the wine of God's wrath, poured unmixed into the cup of his anger. They will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels, in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever. There's no rest day or night for those who worship the beast or its image, for anyone who receives the mark of its name. Here is the call for the endurance of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and hold fast to the faith of Jesus." So again, do not be drunk with Babylon's methods, because those are the ones that lead to destruction. Don't be, the seduction of violence, right? That's basically what Babylon and Rome in this case are known for. And that is repaid with violence. That is not victory. Those who you thought were victorious, we find out later Babylon and Rome are clearly established. That's not victory at all. That is actually defeat. The victorious ones are the ones who were conquered, the first fruits who are standing on Mount Zion. So the beast looks like the beast is victorious. That is undermined in the very next chapter, when it's actually the saints who are victorious standing with the Lamb. And I heard the loud voice saying, "Write this, blessed are the dead who from now on die in the Lord. Yes, says the Spirit, they'll rest from their labors. Their deeds will follow them." So still hope, right? Even if you aren't among the first fruits, still hope to endure in this. And I looked, and there was a white cloud, and seated on the cloud was one like the Son of Man. This sounds exactly like Daniel. With a golden crown on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. Then another angel, sickle is the one-handed one. The scythe is the two-handed one, right? So I got to gesture correctly. With a sickle in his hand. And another angel came out of the temple, calling with a loud voice to the one who sat on the cloud, "Use your sickle and reap, for the hour to reap has come, because the harvest of the earth is fully ripe." So the one who sat on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the earth was reaped. So this, it seems, is with regard to the faithful ones. They're the ones who believe are being reaped. This is the church, right? The first fruits have already been reaped. They're standing with God, with Jesus, the martyrs, right? And now those who testify and endure now are being harvested. So this is an agricultural society. They get this. Sorry, everyone's martyred. Then another angel came out of the temple in heaven, and he too had a sharp sickle. Then another angel came out from the altar. The angel has authority over fire, and he called with a loud voice to him who had a sharp sickle, "Use your sharp sickle and gather clusters of of the vine of the earth, for its grapes are ripe. So the angel swung his sickle over the earth, gathered the vintage of the earth, threw it into the great winepress of the wrath of God, and the winepress was trodden outside the city, and blood flowed from the winepress as high as the horse's bridle for a distance of about 200 miles, or 1,600 stadia. This is a second reaping. This reaping does seem to be judgment of the nations that is coming here. The nations are the ones that are judged so often. It's the nations that are judged in Matthew 25. Nations are judged here as well. It's interesting that the church that's, I mean, obviously making wine from grapes is a violent process. First you harvest the grapes, then you step on the grapes. But it's not like wheat gets off any easier, right? Because first you harvest the wheat, then you have to grind the wheat, right? So it's interesting that even though the church is reaping, they leave out the negative part, the treading part. But the judgment of the nations, you get the violence. 1,600 stadia, the 200 miles. This is one of those times I don't know that we need to translate distances in Revelation. The numbers are so symbolic. That's 40 squared. What's 40 squared mean? I don't know. Nobody knows what 40 squared means. Some say 40 is a traditional judgment number. I don't know that that's right. I mean, 40 is at least a testing number. So maybe that's what it is, the testing of the nations. I know that's a judgment number, but anyway, the outside the city, hard to miss outside the city and blood flowing, because that's what happened to the crucifixion, was outside the city with Jesus's blood flowing. So this is an active sacrifice. I mean, this could be positive as well. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't sound it, but grapes becoming wine and making that, think Eucharist. Yeah, but the wrath of God is on those who, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure we can read this. Yeah, the Eucharist sounds like cannibalism. So it is the Eucharist. Wheat, and I know, that's what I'm saying. Wheat and grapes. Is this a Eucharist reference? I don't know. I mean, again, we're so deeply steeped in apocalyptic imagery. It's hard for me to know exactly what we're doing there, but I think it's possible. But ultimately, I do think it's significant that the beasts that thought they were victorious are undermined. They are the caricatures of the Lamb. They are pretenders. And then the Lamb shows up and actually speaks to the nations and calls upon the nations to worship. And the earth then comes ripened, the first fruits first, and then we get the harvesting of the bread and the wine, the grapes. The harvesting of the wheat that becomes the bread. I went bread and wine because I went to the Eucharist. I don't know. I skipped some steps. I would need to sit with that a little longer, and unfortunately, I'm not a New Testament scholar, nor am I a Revelation scholar. But I wonder if we can't do something with Eucharist here, with all that's going on. And what we're hearing is negative might not be at all. This might just be, it's time, and it's time that we truly become one with Christ. And, the wrath is poured out on the beast and on the beast and on the dragon. I mean, and judging the nations, but because we're about to see the nations actually enter into the city. Spoiler alert, at the end, the nations are redeemed at the end of the story. So that's fascinating. The encouragement is to not participate in idolatry. The encouragement is to not even a little participate in doing business with emperor worship and those that promote emperor worship, which seem to be the main targets, really, that we're looking at here. So